All right. John, can you introduce yourself to the group here real quick?
Sure. Yeah. I'm John from Bulldog Mindset, and I basically teach men how to be men. I talk a lot about personal development for men on my YouTube channel and do a lot of coaching for men and help them in all the areas of their life, from the financial side of investing, buying real estate, building a business, to the fitness side of getting in shape and getting that discipline that you need, and then the relationship and dating side. And then it's all kind of tied together with Stoic philosophy, right? This idea of getting rid of the victim mindset. Too many men today have the victim mindset. So that's really what Bulldog Mindset is all about.
Okay. Well, where were you in life when you start having this like change of mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were multiple points in life where I had these kind of shifts in mindset. The first one I could think of was when I was probably in high school, around maybe 16 or 17, where I sort of had this epiphany, this idea. I woke up one morning with this idea of like, why not me, right? This idea that really, like, I could be whatever I want to be. Like, other people that I was somewhat jealous of, or that felt like were the cool kids, or or athletic, or whatever it was, there was no reason why I couldn't be that if I just chose to be that. So I started acting as if, sort of this kind of fake it till you make it, just putting on the persona of who I wanted to be. And that was a powerful kind of transformation. But it wasn't a complete transformation, because a lot of it was still seeking external validation, right? I was doing things because of other people and because of the credit that I wanted to get, the validation from other people. But a little bit later on in life, I went through another period that was probably, there were a couple of these, but the bigger one was probably around maybe, let's say, 28 or so. And I was overweight at that point, and like, it just was not going the direction I wanted in life. And I had this big wake up call that was like, you're not going to achieve the things you want in life unless you go into, it's not just going to magically happen. You have to go and take the actions. And so that's when I got back in shape, really got on my purpose, and motivated to build my business and become financially free. And I went in that time period from like 28 to 33, from basically not quite broke, but not making a lot of money, not really in shape, to being ripped, running marathons and having, a multimillionaire status in that 5-year transformation. And then the final one, I'd say, was probably about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where I really had this idea that I didn't really understand what masculinity was, right? I felt like I was an adult, but more of like a grown boy, And so then I really started delving into a lot of the subject matter stuff, like Rational Male, Jack Donovan's book, The Way of Men, all that kind of stuff, and really started conquering my fears, working on even improving my discipline more, and started really amping up my game. That's where kind of Bulldog Mindset came. I realized I still, even though I had success, still had somewhat of the victim mindset, and I need to take charge of my life and really transform it. So that's kind of where those transitions happen.
Yeah, and the masculinity part, right? A lot of these guys, a lot of the people here, or the guys here, they're raised around women. They're like, for example, most of the teachers in high school, right? They're mostly women. So,
Yeah.
and the people around them, they were also women. So, and they were raised to know that masculinity is a bad thing, right? That it's a toxic trait. But from reading like the Iron John and all that, is like, it's not, as men, you should be surround yourself with other men that have like-minded mindset. What would you say about those males that say that it's a toxic trait?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is to understand is that I like how Jack Donovan put it in The Way of Men, is that there's a difference between being a man and being a good man, right? And so that's the thing, is like, when you talk about masculinity, when you talk about being a man, there's the good and the bad of it. It is what it is, right? It is aggression, it is assertiveness, it is these things. And so you cannot separate one from the other. There's no such thing. Like, the same coin has both sides to it, right? So masculinity is going to carry with it harmful things, to not good things. It depends on, and I think the reason why is because, see, the viewpoint that we have now is sort of the societal viewpoint of like what's good for society or community, or, you know, but what has historically been the viewpoint and where masculinity probably originated is a tribal mindset. And we're still tribal to that day. And so when we try to define terms like good or bad, those terms don't make sense when you look at a tribal perspective. It's only what's good for my tribe, what is good. It's about conquering and winning. And so, you know, a lot of the whole idea of toxic masculinity is looking at as if you belong to some tribe that is the human race, or some tribe that is the United States, or some tribe that is, you know, this community. You know, you owe no allegiance to this community, to the human race, to the United States. You owe allegiance to your tribe, right? It's about survival. And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And like I said, those same attributes, right? The same thing that makes a man a good protector and provider and to fight off people who would attack his tribe or his people is the same thing that also makes him capable of violence and causes what people would call evil. So you can't have one without the other. So when people say toxic masculinity, I just say it's just masculinity, right? It's just, how is it being deployed? And, you know, again, there's ways to express your masculinity in ways that are positive to yourself and more beneficial. You know, that's tempering it with wisdom, right? And that's a critical component. But at the same time, you know, masculinity is masculine, just like a force of nature. It is what it is, and you have to respect that force. You can't, if you try to eliminate that force, then you will eliminate the protecting and good elements of that as well. So
yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I have a buddy of mine, right? He says that we're not cavemen anymore, right? We shouldn't act like that we need to protect, we need a tribe or anything like that. We have modern technology or modern stuff. So for him, it's mostly like you have the peer pressure, right? The peer pressure from everybody else that's saying, hey, you shouldn't be like this, right? Why don't you be like the regular person that has that job, that gets married or does all that sort. What would you say to like the peer pressure in this, like with your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's the people just around you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key components of being a man is choosing your own way, choosing your own path in life, making your own choices, taking responsibility for those decisions, accepting the consequences of your actions. Do what you want to do, accept the consequences of your actions. And so if you want to start a family, get married, all those things, there's nothing wrong with those things. In fact, I think those are, for a lot of men, those are beneficial things, right? But it needs to be a conscious choice that they're making, and it needs to be a choice made from awareness as well, knowing what the societal constructs and the potential risks that are involved in that. But if you shouldn't shy away from things just because they contain risks, right? A lot of guys, I think, take it too far in the masculinity space and some of the tribes within masculinity, and they say, okay, well, forget about women. They disparage the idea of any kind of marriage or family, and that's that's not a very smart thing, because they're afraid of risk. They're afraid of divorce court and all. They hear all these stories, and the thing you have to do as a strong man is to learn how to manage that risk and to reduce that risk. But then if it happens, then it happens, right? But you don't simply avoid things because they're dangerous. So if you want to go down that road, I think that's a perfectly fine, but you should do it because of your choice, not because of peer pressure, because you're supposed to do it or society tells you you're supposed to do a thing.
Yeah, I call like that like the NPC, right? So in video games, you have like people that are not like the character you're playing as. They're just like the bots that are just walking around everywhere. So exactly. I would say don't get advices from those people. And then what I see that a lot of guys run into is I know you support this as well. Like you have to get used to being lonely, right? And with the loneliness factor, what would you say to those people that are like, hey, I don't know if I can go with a lonely route. I don't know if I want to live the life of being lonely or something, not just like being lonely like forever, but just like having that mental stability of like, can I do this by myself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical. Like, you cannot have successful relationships with people unless you have a successful relationship with yourself, unless you can be comfortable being by yourself or with your own company, right? You should look forward to, you should have enough stuff that you're doing and challenging yourself in life that having time to yourself is a good thing, right? If you feel like you always have to be in the company of other people, then you're avoiding your life. You don't have significant challenges. You don't have a purpose or a mission in your life, right? Again, it's not to say that you can't have other people in your life, but you do have to ultimately understand that. And you can really feel this when you get really sick. There's no one can help you. And people can bring you soup or comfort you or say, I hope you feel better, but no one can act. Like, that's when you realize you are totally in your own skin, no matter what it is, by yourself. And there's nothing that anyone else can do. And, eventually someday you're going to die alone. That's how it is. Like, this is a reality of the situation. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's good to understand that, because then you don't feel like you need to rely totally on other people. It's good to build relationships, but it'll be very difficult for you to build a relationship until you have a strong sense of self-efficacy. You need to be able to take care of yourself and be self-reliant first. Once you can do that, then you can provide to others. Because one of the big things too with relationships, whether it be male female sexual relationships or just friendship relationships, is that it is important that you create value for people, right? We all hate to be around needy people, and needy people are people who drain us. They're vampires. They're emotional vampires. They need something. They take something from you. You want to be around people who give, right? And the only way that you can do that is you can't give what you don't have. So it has to overflow from you, right? And so if you want to be able to love people, you have to have a high degree of love for yourself. You have to have confidence in yourself, and then that will carry over. Then when you're in the presence of other people, they feel that you're giving to them instead of taking from them. And that's so critical, especially again in romantic relationships. So many guys mess this up, and they become needy and they become desperate, and that ends up turning off the woman that they're with. And so, but if you are a man who is good by yourself, you don't need someone, then they become an asset to you. Then you become something good in their life, and you provide benefit from them instead of taking.
Yeah. And with the female, like, what would you say a good female would be for a guy? Like, because some guys, they just want a body, right? Or they don't really care who they are. They speak from like their sexual desires, and they do from their mind. And most of the time, the female that they choose is like, um, they're not the best candidate for them, and it's more of a toxic relationship than it is for a benefit, like an asset. So what would you say to the guys that are going through probably like a toxic relationship, or better yet, they're trying to find a female that suits them, or that becomes that asset? What qualities makes a female have that type of asset?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is that she treats you like a king, is what I always say. You should treat her like a princess. She should treat you like a king, not a queen, but a princess. Is a different dynamic there. But the most important thing in the long term will be how she treats you. Now, you will have an influence on that, and you to a degree, a lot of, I think, in many cases, it is the man that shapes the relationship. And so a woman can be a totally different person with one man than another one. So a lot of times the responsibility does fall on you. And so, obviously it's good to make a good choice from the beginning, but at the same time, a lot of the way that you act is going to influence things. So for example, setting proper boundaries, not tolerating disrespect, right? Those are things that if you do not do this, you will be encouraging the woman that you're with to treat you poorly, because women will push and they will try to test boundaries, and it's not a malicious thing. It's a thing out of safety and security, because a person that does not feel boundaries does not feel safe and secure. And so a woman will ride roughshod over you if she can, and she will try to do that. And if you allow that because you're too kind, you're too needy, you don't have a backbone, then you will cause her to treat you poorly in the future, that relationship. But if you can set those boundaries, then she's going to respect them, and she's going to respect you, or she's not going to be in your life. So you really have to be, the biggest thing is what I always tell guys, like, you can take all the dating advice you want, you can take all the, whatever's out there, but if you just follow one rule, you will do perfectly fine, which is that do not allow someone to treat you in a way that you do not want to be treated, period. If you just follow that one thing, it will provide you enough guidance in life to not make a mistake, because it goes with selection as well, right? Obviously, you're not going to select to be with a woman that doesn't treat you the way that you want to be treated, but also, hey, that also ends things, right? If she starts treating you in a way that you don't want to be treated, and then if you don't allow that, then you're not going to be in that relationship anymore. So there's no way to get into trouble as long as you hold on to that rule.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what, like, a lot of guys, whenever they try to set boundaries, like, what are some examples? You gave a good example about don't treat others like the way you want to be treated. But are there any other boundaries that you would say is a good indicator that that separates, that she finds attractive, or that you can basically set to show that you are you are what she's seeking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna depend on what is your, whatever your personal values are, right? If you don't like something, for instance, many guys, and I advise it, is that they don't like if the girl that they're with has friends that are guys, right? So I mean, I think that's a pretty clear boundary that you should be setting. But especially if you're uncomfortable with that, you need to set that boundary and say that I don't date women that have friends that are guys. That's it. Like, that's a boundary, right? Is somewhat, it could be on the dress, what she's wearing or where she's going, like going out. I certainly would set a boundary. I would advise all guys to set a boundary. It's like, if I'm in a serious relationship with a woman, she doesn't have a girls' night. She doesn't go out to clubs or some girls' trip. That shit doesn't. It's not going to happen. That's a boundary, right? So setting boundaries like that, being smart boundaries, anything that makes you uncomfortable that you don't like, you should have some kind of a boundary about that. And that's being honest, and that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you're going to get run over. So.
Yeah. Devin Hicks here, he has a question. He's just he's in a really loud area, so he just texted me. He's like, how do you overcome rejection in business and relationships?
Yeah, I mean, rejection is a choice, right? You're never rejected. You reject yourself, right? There's not right now is the answer. Or, I mean, that's how I look at it, right? It's like, because under different circumstances, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, rejection is something that you do to yourself, right? Let's say you go up to a girl in a bar and you try to talk to her and she says, I have a boyfriend, or whatever. Or she says, I'm going to go see my friends, or she says, I'm not interested, whatever. That's not a rejection necessarily. I mean, for multiple reasons. For one, like, are you giving up at that point? Like, is that like, you could say, okay, that's a rejection, or you could carry on. You could be like, all right, not let it phase you, just carry on with the conversation, whatever. It's not a big deal. Maybe you make some inroads, maybe you don't, doesn't matter, because why do you take that as a personal attack or something against you? It's not necessarily meant to. You can interpret that as you want to, but you can interpret it as whatever you want to, right? The same thing in business, right? Not everyone is going to say yes. Not everyone's going to buy something you're selling. Is that a rejection of you? No, maybe they don't have money. Maybe they're in a different place in their life that, again, at some point you may still have that opportunity for a girl, for a business, whatever it is. That's why you should be thinking about it as not right now, or things didn't line up, as opposed to a personal thing. It's not personal. Under different circumstances, things would be different. So you just have to take it, as just part of the process, and not take it as rejection. If you take it as rejection, then you'll be causing harm to yourself. But you make that choice. It's a choice you make. No one can reject me. When I just go out, girls will say whatever. I don't care what they say. I'm still having a good time. It's like, hey, it's good. I could just carry on a conversation. I don't want to talk to me. That's cool. It's fine. Like, I got plenty of other things to do. I got plenty of other people to talk to. It's not, I don't see it as, as any reflection of my value. So.
Yeah. He said, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And the problem I see with a lot of guys lately is that they declare themselves as the victim, right? I know you advocate, like, stop having that victim mindset, because they always say, oh, I'm an introvert, extrovert, I have ADHD, stuff like that. What would you say to those guys that feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, it's like, there's a lot of good excuses, okay, in life, but excuses are still excuses. They still don't. I mean, the best excuse possible still doesn't get you what you want. So I can agree with you. Okay, maybe you're disadvantaged in some way, whatever. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what is effective to move you forward towards your goal, right? You could get dealt a bad hand, you could get dealt a good hand. Ultimately, it matters how you play the hand, because that's what you can control. Like, thinking about things that you can't control, that you can't affect, is a waste of time. That's why the victim mindset is so dangerous, is because it's not action. There's no point in dwelling on what's happened to you in a negative light, because it doesn't actually move you towards anything. It's just a waste of time, and it changes, and it's a waste of mindset. Instead, whether it's your fault or not, it's your responsibility. Like, everything in your life is a responsibility, right? You could have bad circumstances, bad things could happen to you, but regardless, you're the one who has to take charge of it and ownership of it, because you're the only one who's going to fix your problems and is going to care. No one gives a fuck about you. No one cares whether you are successful or rich, or you get laid, or any of those things. No one cares about that, right? They might pretend to care, but no one really cares about it like you do. So you have to take responsibility for it. So yeah, you can cry me a river, you can whine about all this stuff. I can agree with you, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? There's plenty of people that have been dealt worse hands than most people that are whining. What if you're born with one leg or no legs? I see guys running all the time on little springs, spring legs, and they're running marathons and stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay, these guys are doing what they can with their life. Everyone has to do what they can with their life. There's no prize for being a victim. You don't get nothing for that. So, I think it's also like, we used to, I don't know, when I was a kid, if I got beat up in school, I didn't go home and tell my parents. I told them, like, I tripped or something, like, because it's embarrassing. Like, I don't want to be the victim, right? If someone does something to me, I don't allow them to make me the victim. You cannot harm me. I'm not going to take it as you have that I am the victim. I'm always going to spin the narrative such that whatever I didn't become the victim of that thing. I'm not going to allow someone to have that that power over me to make me the victim. And so, it's not a badge of honor to be a victim. It's a shameful thing to be a victim. So let's not lift that up. Let's hide that instead. And because it is a shameful thing. That's how we have to view it.
Yeah, you were right. Like, I believe, like, in all the honor, and like a lot of like Asian families, they do follow the honor role, like the honor role, where like if they will always try to pay for their own stuff, like they don't
Yeah.
they don't want to look a certain way, and I feel like that's the type of tradition that's kind of gone right now, like in the Western world. Uh, but a lot of people still like value that, like, you should always have honor in yourself, and like never live that victim mindset, because again, you're never gonna go anywhere with that. So David here has a question. Go ahead, David.
My question is, what's your opinion or outlook on depression, on seasonal depression, and if you believe in it? That's my question.
On depression, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe it's a thing. Well, obviously we get depressed, right? I think that the medical definition of depression, I think it's a lot of BS. I think a lot of the psychological things, psychology is not a real science. There's no evidence for this, or you cannot test the theories. There's no science behind this. This is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Now, some of the characterizations make sense, right? And I'm not saying cognitive behavior therapy and things like that don't help people, but we tend to medicate people. We want to give people, the thing about calling people depressed or bipolar or having being on the spectrum of Asperger's, the autistic spectrum, it's all our hyperactivity. These are all things, labels that give people excuses to feel better about themselves, so they think it's not their fault. Again, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's your fault; it's your responsibility. So if you're depressed, okay, fine. It's still your responsibility to figure this out, to solve this problem. A lot of times, what we find too is that depression is a result of it's a signal. It means that you need to change your life in some way. You're not doing something right. There's a reason why you feel this way. And you can ignore the signal, just like when your fire alarm goes off, okay, you can pull the battery out, but there might be a fire, okay? And if you continue to ignore the signal, you're still going to get burned by the fire. And it's the same thing. Like, yeah, you can take a bunch of pills, you can do things to hide the depression, but the signal that you're getting from depression is that you are not living the life you're supposed to. You need to make a change in your life. That's why you get that that feeling. Again, not to say that there's not extreme cases where there are actual issues, but even chemical imbalances in the brain, we control the chemical balance and makeup of our brain. The way that we think greatly influences what chemicals are floating around inside our brain, and the frequency of that, and our dopamine receptors and all of those systems. Like it's a very complex feedback system. It's not just like the chemicals make you feel things, it's how you feel influences the chemicals, which influences how you feel. It's a cycle, a feedback loop. So it's very important to look at things that way. So have I gone through depressions in my life? Of course, some of them long, but every time that I've come out of one, it's been a change in my life that I've needed to make, and that was a signal for making that change. So that's kind of how I view it. I think that it's just way over medicated, and too many people use it as an excuse, because again, nobody cares about your excuses. No one gives a fuck about what you want in life, and excuses aren't gonna do you anything. So maybe you're sad. Shit, maybe you just gotta have to fucking work through it and push through it, because that's how life is sometimes. And if you feel like there's something wrong with you, and you use that as a reason for not performing or not accomplishing what you want out of life, then you're going to continue to do that in life. Like you cannot use that as an excuse.
That is spot on right there, John. I love how you just said it though. And John, like, what do you believe like actions that a guy can take, like an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old can take to pay dividends off for their future?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is something that you encourage, which already is reading books, right? That is one of the biggest things that you can do. I mean, if you are reading a book a week, okay, you are going to change your life. You cannot take in the knowledge and wisdom of so many people and not have drastic improvements and changes in your life, right? That will sort of inform all the other things. If you're thinking about some of the other pragmatic, practical things, one of them is definitely going to be becoming independent, right? Building a business for yourself. I think that's key. Like if I was around that age right now, I would not work for someone else. I would just build a business, right? You're going to be poor for a while. It's going to be a struggle, but man, if you come out of that maybe 4 or 5 years later, and you have some success, and you're making your own money, and you don't have to work for someone else, you're on a much better road than everyone else, even though it's going to start off where other people are going to getting good jobs and making a lot of money and stuff, and you're poor. It's fine. And another one that I would say is to get yourself, to keep yourself in shape, and to get in shape, right? And to stop screwing around, right? It's too many people, they're on diets all the time, and they're like trying to because they never just stop screwing around and hit your goals. There's this principle I call it is the knife's edge, right? And you can think of it this way, right? Let's say you're trying to lose weight or something. An apple is about 100 calories, right? So let's say that you figure out what your calories are, and you could eat an apple today and go over your calories by 100, or not and be in a deficit, or eat one less apple. I'm saying like 2 apples can make the difference, right? You could be in a deficit of 100 calories or a surplus of 100 calories in 1 year. It's gonna be a huge freaking difference. The difference between 2 apples a day, right? You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's how small the knife's edge is. It's like the difference between getting fat in a year and getting totally ripped is just, that little difference of whether or not you're in a surplus or a deficit, which could be just a very small amount. So stop messing around, stop fucking around, and actually take your goals serious. So you don't waste 10 years trying to get in shape, because you could do it in 1 or 2. Same thing with business, all this stuff, like messing around, not taking things seriously. It's such a waste of time. Like just go all into it and just, get the shit done. And then you can be in a better place. And the final one I would say is working on your social skills, developing them. You need to do that. You need to get out of your comfort zone. It's intimidating. Sure, everybody and their mom has social anxiety, but that it doesn't matter. Like you have to get over that. You have to use fear and pain as your compass. Just go into that and just face it. Like there's nothing that bad's going to happen to you. But the more if you want to judge how is a person most successful in life, the most successful person in life is a person who has spent more time, who has a bigger comfort zone, right? That means that they spent more time in discomfort, going outside their comfort zone. If you continue to go outside of your comfort zone, you will grow and you will expand, and that will be reflected in your life. So when you're young, focus on doing things that are outside your comfort zone.
John, what are some things that you can do to get outside of your comfort zone and start networking more? Because I know one of the things that you recommend is asking out girls wherever you go, right? The people that you find attractive. What other examples would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, taking shots in business, doing things that scare you, having experiences to conquering your fears, go and and do the things that you find are scaring you in life, or pain, right? Pain and fear is your compass. Okay, so find things that scare you, you go in that direction. Find things that are painful and go in that direction, right? Physical pain is great, right? Go and run a marathon. Go sign up for a marathon. I never thought I could run a marathon. I used to run 3 miles a week, or 3 miles 3 times a week, and that was hard. I was like, I did this for years. And then one day I was like, no, I'm going to push way outside my comfort zone and run a half marathon and then run a marathon. So find things, it's very easy to find things that are outside your comfort zone. If you make a list of those things, what are the things that would make you uncomfortable in life? It could be physical discomfort. It could be mental discomfort, right? Pick those things.
Nice. I like that. Sami here, he has a question. Go ahead, Sami.
Hello. So you said having changes, right? Pushing out your comfort zone, right? Would you say, would that be more like a gradual process of doing it slowly over time? Would you say more like doing it all at once, try to do as much as you can?
Yeah, there's 2 ways of doing this. I think that's effective as far as transformation in your life. One is jumping in to the deep end, and the other one is walking in slowly, right? You have to do one or the other, right? So if you really want to make a complete drastic change in your life, change everything all at once. Move to a new city, start a new workout routine, start a new habit of reading books, start a new business, right? Start talking to girls everywhere you see it, implement all this stuff at once, because then you become a completely different person. You can make all those changes at one time, and in your brain, because environment is so key, right? So we tend to fall into habits, right? You're breaking all those habits at once. You're creating a new identity for yourself, because identity is the most powerful force in the universe, right? So that's how that works. The other way to do it is to do slow, gradual changes. So pick one thing and change that thing, right? Prioritize, look at, in the Bulldog Mindset membership, I have this looking in the mirror exercise where you basically stand naked in the mirror, okay? And you take an account of everything, right? Everything, what are your physical defects? What are, in a non-judgmental way, what are their positive attributes? But you do it mentally as well and spiritually, right? You look at all these things and you objectively say, where are my weaknesses? Where are my strengths, right? I'm not judging myself about this, but then for all the things, you kind of prioritize it and you say, okay, well, what things you can either accept them or change them, right? Some things you can't change, right? So if you're short, okay, you just need to accept that. It's going to be important for you to accept that in life because you're not going to be able to change that. So that's fine. All right. But there are other things that you can change. Physical things you can change, mental things you can change, right? Spiritual things you can change. And so prioritize those things and then figure out what thing, if you fix this one thing or make it progress in this, will cause the greatest influence, positive influence on your life. And then just focus on that one thing. Don't focus on 50 different things at a time, and just focus on changing that thing and building that into a habit, and then we'll move on to the next one. And so you could go either road, I think, with that. So, but what most people do is they kind of do a middle road where they change a few things at one time, and they're trying to do a New Year's resolution in all these different habits, and they're not really changing their environment, and they don't have the they're never going to stick with it. So
yeah. And John, what was the most important thing you've learned in life that after learning you were like, wow, thank God that I learned that?
That's it. I think there's a few of them, but one that comes to mind right now is to not have expectations on other people and not allow them to put expectations on me. So critical. That changed sort of everything in my life, because I allowed people to put expectations on me. In fact, there's a really good book, Boundaries. It's a Christian, theological book, but it is really good. I still recommend everyone read it, regardless of your religious beliefs. But the whole idea is like when you let people put expectations on you, it's guilt, right? My parents guilted me, my relationships that I was in, romantic relationships guilted me, right? I felt all this guilt, I pressure, like I needed to do things, felt I was doing things out of obligation, right? At the point that I realized, I was like, no, I'm not allowing people to put expectations on me. I'm gonna like, you don't have any control over what I do. It's my life. I can choose what I want to do. I'm only gonna do things that I want to do. If I don't want to do it genuinely, I'm not going to do it. Then that was so freeing. And then it also allowed me to stop putting expectations on other people, because I was constantly being disappointed in relationships because I was doing the same thing. I was expecting people to behave the way that I wanted them to. I was expecting people to treat me the way that I wanted them to. And instead, what I realized is that I don't have any power. I can't control how people treat me. And I don't have any right to demand that someone treat me in a certain way. Instead, my power is choosing to be in a relationship with them or choosing to have them in my life. And so that is, to try and require someone to act some way or to treat you some way or to do something, it's a violation of their boundaries. That's not right. They're an autonomous individual. They have their own free sovereign choice in life, and they shouldn't be pressured. They can do whatever they want. You have to take it and leave it. You can do whatever you want in response, which is to exit the situation, right? If you don't like the way someone's treating you, don't try and change them. Don't try and make them, don't try and pressure them or guilt them. Just don't have a relationship with them.
Yeah, that's so true. And John, I've seen you like travel a lot, right? And like early on in your life and now especially. Uh, would you recommend young men to like travel around the world, like to see what's happening around them?
That's a good question. I think if you have the opportunity, it's good to take some of those opportunities, but I don't know if it really makes a huge amount of difference, right? I think a little bit of travel, like getting outside of your country, is certainly out of your state. Like you should do that. But as I traveled a lot, I stopped traveling as much because I started to realize it's like, I got it. I get it. I mean, it doesn't take, you don't have to visit all over the world to like see that people live differently, that they're different, ideals. And really, even the differences are not as different as what you would think in many cases, because we're all joined together by the internet. We see it already, and we see those things, but it's good to see and to experience, and really, I think the fear of it, right? Again, this is one of those things where I think the traveling, like going to a foreign country, going somewhere where you don't speak the language, where you don't have a navigation system that you're used to, is good, because it puts you in a situation where you become more self-reliant, right? One thing I gained from traveling around the world is that, hey, I know that no matter where I end up, I can figure out how to get food, how to live somewhere, how to, handle myself in another country. So I think there's benefit in that, but it's not overly as overall as beneficial, I think, as some people think it is.
Yeah, someone told me like you're not gonna gain anything from eating good food or looking at minerals all day. So you have to go. You actually have to go through problems in your life. But do you have any like travel hacks, or like some guys here? They're like, actually, what if I do want to go out of like state, or like travel hacks, or what was your favorite trip you've taken?
Gosh, I mean, I did a few trips where I did like 3 months around Europe and travel. Did stayed in a lot of different places. But well, okay. So along with that, one of the travel hacks I did during that time was called a home exchange. So you can basically swap homes with someone in Europe, which is pretty cool, or wherever you're traveling, where they come and they live in your home and you live in their home, right? So that'll save you a lot of money. Because you don't have to pay for a hotel or whatever. And then you also get to live like in a real city, like a real living. It's different visiting a city and being in a hotel. So that's a big hack for it. And then one of the places I actually thought was really, I liked Berlin a lot. Berlin was a pretty cool city, but Iceland, I stayed in Iceland for a couple of weeks, and Iceland is it's so different. It's so amazing. It's so beautiful that if you like nature and outdoors, because you have glaciers and volcanoes in the same place. The continental divide is there. It's just such an interesting place. Not a lot of people have gone to, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was looking into Iceland too, like the way like the greenery looks and all that. Do you have like a mentor like when you first started, or like any of that sort that keeps you in check?
I didn't. I sort of forged my own path. I didn't really have like books from a mentor because I didn't know enough to even know. Like now I have coaches. I get help from people if I want to learn something. I pay them to teach me, but back then I just kind of figured everything out myself, like from books and from experience, right? I figured out how to do real estate investment. And I spent a lot of time, and I think there's some value in this too. It's like, just think about things for yourself. Like a lot of the philosophy I figured out, it was just me sitting and thinking, right? Just thinking about these things. That's how I figured out these principles in life that, like we just talked about, not having expectations on people, not allowing them to put expectations on me. I figured out that framework myself. A lot of things I teach in Bulldog Mindset, the mental toughness and discipline, all those things are things that I just sat and thought about this, and this makes sense. This is from a principled perspective. This makes sense. Even the math and the real estate, when I started investing, I've read some books on real estate investing, but I started looking at it and I started thinking about, like, most of the real estate strategy that I have comes from me just sitting and thinking about things, running some numbers, testing some scenarios, saying, okay, well, how would this work? Okay, this is why this makes sense. And, in coming up with it on my own. So, there's definitely a value in getting mentors, and certainly, you should get coaching. If you want to do something, the fastest way to be able to do it is to find someone who's already doing it and pay them to teach you. I think that's absolutely true. But at the same time, also, like, don't be afraid to just sit and think about things yourself and figure things out. Sometimes people jump too far ahead and they just want everything handed to them, or they want some formula for something when you can use your own brain and figure things out.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like for me, example, I go through the same situation where, like, I have that rabbit head, right? Like you just want to keep on going to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing throughout your whole
Right.
schedule. But you never had time to, like, sit down and, like, actually think, like, what's the best way of doing this? Like, how to actually have that brain, like, working for you instead of you working that brain out. And like, what was your mindset at whenever you first started real estate? Like, how was that?
Yeah, it was, when I first started investing in real estate, the reason why, like, I kind of came across it. I mean, I bought my first house at 19, but it was more of an act. Like, I didn't realize what I was doing. I wasn't trying to invest in real estate. I just didn't want to pay rent. And I just had that in my head. And I was like, okay, I should buy a house. Like, I didn't know the real math behind it, like, anything through that decision, but it turned out to be a good one that put me down that path. But the big turning point was I got this really good job in LA, making like $75 an hour. I was like 19. It's crazy. It's like during the .com boom. It was just crazy. I hardly had to interview for the job. I wasn't qualified for the job. It was a software development job, but I got this crazy job, and they paid per diem because I was out of state. So it ended up being like the equivalent of making like $170,000, $180,000 a year. This is 20 years ago, right? So over 20 years ago. So that was even more money then. And I thought, man, I made it. I'm rich. Like, people don't make much more money than this. Like, doctors and lawyers don't even make, hardly, much more than this. So I figured, okay, this is good. Like, I'm going to be rich. And so I started just doing the math. So I was like, okay, I'm going to save as much money as I can. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I bought macaroni and cheese, it's like, even though I was making this ridiculous amount of money. And I figured, okay, with taxes and everything, like living in LA as cheaply as possible, I could probably save like $100,000 a year. And so then I was like, okay, well, how long before I'm a millionaire? And, obviously like 10 years, but then you have inflation. So I was like, okay, so that's 13 years. And then I was like, millionaire is not really wealthy or rich. It's not really financially independent either. So, I mean, you'd be a millionaire, but it's like, so I gotta keep this job, which, I got to hold on to this job, which I don't really deserve anyway. I got to work my ass off for the next like 13 years. I got to live like a poor person and save every penny I got. And then I can finally be a millionaire. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then, I thought about the stock market too. It's like, okay, let me see what happens if I get an 8% return or what. It didn't make hardly any difference in 10 years. It really doesn't matter, right? So, because compounding interest, this is the thing that most people don't understand. Compounding interest is bullshit unless you have time, a lot of time, or you have a very high return, or you need two of three things, right? Because with compounding interest, you have time, you have initial capital, and you have rate of return. You need two of those things to be very high in order to make. Otherwise, it's worthless to you, right? So anyway, so I started researching. I was like, how do people make money? How do people become wealth? And I found that 9% of the wealth in the United States was created from real estate, right? So I started studying and looking, and then it made sense to me. I read this book by Gary Keller, the founder of Keller Williams, called Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And he had some charts in there and some math. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This makes sense. This is how it works. It's like, you got to buy property. Like, there's no other way around this. Like, there's no way you're going to build true wealth aside from business, like, which I didn't really understand at the time. But even then, like, that's not an investment. That's something that you have to build, and that doesn't last forever. So that's where I got on the path of investing in real estate and realizing that it's not like, it's not a way is the only way. Like, if you're not investing in real estate, you're not going to retire young unless you make some business that you sell for millions of dollars. Right? That's the only choice. It's not going to happen in the stock market. It's just not. If you do the math on it, you'll see with compounding interest, it's going to take you at least 20, 30 years.
Yeah, like that's how I came up to like real estate. Like a bunch of these like people, they just do real estate, right? Like you see a lot of people that like, especially like when I saw like, oh, Kanye, oh, he's a rapper, right? Or he's a singer. But wait a minute, he also owns real estate. I like, nobody talks about that. Nobody talks that they own real estate. Like
Yeah.
that's how most of their income is coming from. And what are some tips you would give to like a young guy to become financially free, to get that, well, whether it's through investing or getting a good job?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few elements here. One of the biggest ones that I think you can influence, that you should start to do as you're young, is your expenses, right? Because becoming financial free, it's just like the Stoic talked about, like wealth, right? The Stoic idea of wealth is that you don't need to have a lot, but what you have needs to be enough. That's it, right? And so it's the same thing. It's like, keep your expenses low. You don't need a car payment. Okay, you don't need all this stuff. Like, reduce as much, because if you could live on $1,500 a month, then all you have to do is make $1,500 a month to be financially free, passive. You know what I mean? So that's what it comes to. And like your freedom, like having that time, it's a multiplier, right? If you have to go and work a job for someone else, it's slavery. Like, you're paying a mortgage on your life, you're unmortgaging your life, you're paying that mortgage on your life, your upkeep. It doesn't benefit you in any way significantly. So you need to buy back that time. If you can buy back 8 hours a day of your time, you know how valuable that is. You know how much money you can make. You know how in shape you can get. You know how much success you can have in life if you have 8 hours of your time back every single day. So that should be your goal. Work for that. So reduce your expenses as much as possible. Okay. If you want to, if you're going down the road of getting a job, get a really high paying job. Don't get some shitty job. Get a good high paying job. A lot of times I just recommend going down software development road. Just go to a coding boot camp. I've got kind of a system of doing it. But if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to become top in the class of coding bootcamp, let's say that you can get a 6-figure job within a year. It's not a problem. But you don't have to go down that road either. Like I said, if I were going, in that position, I would start with a business, right? Because that will get you there. But you do need to build a business of your own. That I think is critical, right? Because working for someone else is never really going to get you rich. You could do working for someone else, make a lot of money, and invest in real estate in 15, 20 years. Yeah, you can be retired and wealthy, but it's a much better road to build your own business, essentially become free before that. Because once you have enough income coming from your business to pay your expenses, if your expenses are low, you're free. You're not totally financially free because you still have to like do something, right? I can consider true financial freedom to be when you have passive income covering your expenses. Then you really don't have to do anything. But you're never going to be in a position where you're not going to do anything either. So think about that as well. It's not like just retire and play video games. It's not going to happen. But it is nice to not have to work. And so set yourself up for that by building a business, starting that now, and starting investing. Right, buy real estate. Just start doing all of those things. Start reading, like I said, become financially educated so you understand. Read good books on finance. Things like Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's not pragmatic, but it gives you the mindset, the idea of it. It doesn't give you advice on how to do it. Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. A really good old one. The Wealth of it's called The Wealth of Babylon, not The Wealth of Babylon.
The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, Richest Man in Babylon. Yeah, read those kind of books so you're financially educated, and then you'll make smart choices. So,
yeah, of course. And whenever you say like John, like starting a business, right? A lot of guys, they think of selling shirts or doing like, well, what do they like? Like they put a lot of emotion into it, right? Like, oh, I like playing video games, so why don't I like make a video game company or something like that, right? They go by their emotional thing. What would you say to those that, because whenever I personally think of a business, I think of real estate, right? Buy a house, rent it out. That's my business right there. So what would you recommend to those guys that don't have that style? They're like, oh, whenever I start a business, it's like, or selling cookies, selling like shirts. What would you recommend for those type of businesses?
Well, first of all, whatever you're doing, your business should be online today because that's most scalable, right? And you got to think about how big can it be, right? Some people are like, oh, well, I'm going to buy a McDonald's or open a restaurant even. And it's no good because what is the max amount of sales that you're going to make? What is the max amount of profit? It's capped, right? Unless you open a chain of stores or whatever, you have so much opportunity with the internet today, right? The easiest thing to do like that, or not the easiest thing, but I would say the most simple thing to do is to build a business around building an audience, right? This is what I've done multiple times. I helped a lot of my coaching clients to do this, like pick some topic, pick something, make a podcast, make a YouTube channel, something like that, and build an audience, put in the work. And then once you have an audience, you have customers. You can sell, just like we were just talking about just the program that you enrolled in that I just launched, right? I mean, I literally came up with this idea, launched this product for $2,000 for the beta version, and I sold 50 slots in like 3 or 4 days. So that's $100,000 in 3 or 4 days, right? Now, obviously, I have to fulfill and deliver on that thing. You have to, like, you don't want to just take people's money. You want to build an actual product that is valuable to people. But that's like, you have to be thinking in those terms, right? You can't be thinking about selling some t-shirts or some crap like that. Like, think about what can you charge someone a lot of money for and provide them a lot of value that can scale up, especially using the internet, right? You think about it this way. It's like, if you have a YouTube channel that let's say has 10,000 subscribers on it, okay, and maybe you can make $5,000 a month from that channel. If you have 100,000, you're making $50,000 a month, and there's not that much of a difference between having a channel that has 10,000 and 100,000. It's like, that's the power of the internet. Like, it's totally achievable. If you have a store, right? Let's say you have a donut store or something, and you get like 50 customers a week or 100 customers a week. You're never going to get 1,000 customers a week. That's never going to happen. I mean, you have to open up 5 different stores in different locations in order for that to happen. Doesn't matter how good your donuts are. Doesn't matter any of those things. So you got to think practically about what is going to scale and what what kind of thing can you start up that you're going to be able to have as much passivity to as well. So,
of course. And what would you recommend to those 18-year-olds that, let's say they do have their finances stable, they're tracking all their money, they're reading the books, but the only problem that they have is scaling up, right? I feel like that's the hardest thing that I've come to find, or like everybody else, like scaling up is probably one of the difficult things, whether it's through getting partnerships or anything like that. What would you recommend to that?
Yeah. So the biggest secret to business is find something that works and do it over and over again. That's all you have to do. Right. And so when you talk about scaling up, it's like a lot of times, I mean, you can do outgoing marketing, right? Where you like cold call people and find, let's say that you've got some kind of business and you've got some product that you're selling for like $300. Okay. Can you not find 100 people that you could cold call a day, right? If you have any kind of decent sales skills, and if you don't, you will develop them. If you talk to 100 people a day, you're going to close like 3 or 4 of them, right? So right there, like whatever business it is, if anyone will buy it, then someone will buy it. Like, the thing is, if there's one, there's more than one, right? So if you can close any deal, that you can find more people like that, right? So go out there and figure out a way to do it. All you need is one system that works, right? I was listening to Alex Hormozy, who's a brilliant businessman, and he was talking about his gym launch and how they started, because they were doing organic kind of sales or like inbound marketing sales, and so they're going to do outbound where they're going to call people, right? And he said that they basically got a list of gyms. They hired a VA to like filter that list to get the phone numbers, make sure that clean up the list. And then they started calling 100 people a day. And out of 100 people they called, they only got 2 appointments. That's 2 people that would jump on a call with them to discuss it in more detail and discuss their offering, right? So that 98% of people that they called, nothing, right? So, but it doesn't matter, because if you're getting 2 a day, right, in a week, just one salesperson, right, what do they get? They get 10. Okay, so they get 10 calls. Out of those 10, they close 20% of them. Okay, so they make 2 sales a week. But guess what? Their minimum ticket price is $25,000. So they're making $50,000 a week, right? They're getting rejected 98% of the time. Essentially, if again, there's no such thing as rejection. But my point is, like, when I listened to that, I was like, how many people would call, like, have that plan and call up 100 gyms and only get 2 appointments and say, oh, this isn't working? No, it is working, right? Right? It's just that the number, maybe you have to do 1,000, whatever it is. Like, there's some kind of scale number. It's the same thing with dating, right? Guys all the time are like, oh, pickup doesn't work, all this stuff. I'm like, I don't, like, maybe you have to talk to 50 girls to get one number. Okay, then that's what it is. Like, you get better, but if you do that a whole bunch of times, you're going to get a result at some point, right? How many, especially guys that are looking for a girlfriend, how many girlfriends do you need? You only need one. So, like, you know what I mean? So whatever it is in business, like, you're having trouble scaling up, find one system, one thing that works, and then just repeat it over and over again, right? I had a guy that was doing Kindle books and publishing Kindle books, and he was a coaching client of mine, and he had 5 Kindle books in the bookstore, and I think he's making $500 a month or something. And he was like, I need your help. He's like, I need to do a different business. This isn't working. And I was like, what are you talking about? This isn't working. You have a system. All you have to do is publish books and you'll make more money. And he was like, well, yeah, I know, but I have 5. I'm only making 500. So I could do a couple more. What would I make? Like 600, 700, 800. I want to make like $5,000, $10,000 a month. I was like, do 100. He's like, I can't write 100 books. I was like, right. You can't write 100 books, but could you probably write 1 book a month? He's like, yeah, I can write 1 book a month. I was like, could you then, like, come up with a process when you're writing that book, how to publish that, document that whole process, and then hire a writer, right, to write with you? So then you're publishing 2 books a month. They're doing 1, you're doing 1, right? And then could you scale it up and eventually have 3 or 4 writers to get to 100? I was like, if you get 100 books out there, okay, you're making $500 a month right now. Okay, so 20 times that, right? So there you go. There's your 10 grand, but you're not going to just make 10 grand, because if you have 100 books out there, one of them is going to be an outlier and it's going to sell like $2,000 or $3,000 a month by itself, right? Or there might be a couple of them. So you're probably making like 20 grand, doing that. So there is always a way. You just have to think about, how can I scale this out? Like, if you can sell one person, you can sell, 100. And I was just talking about, one of my friends on the podcast we're doing on our mastermind group, and he was talking about, he was kind of having struggle with this. And I was like, let's suppose that you had a bike store and you're selling bikes. If I told you today you need to sell 1 bike, what would you do? Or you can't use the list, you can't use any kind of, like, you just have to figure out some way to get someone to buy a bike today. He's like, well, I'd go out to the boardwalk where people, and I would just like start talking to people until I sold a bike. I was like, okay, so you could do that every single day. Like, you could open up a bike store right now, right? And you could sell, like, probably if you stood out there 8 hours a day, you could probably sell like 5, maybe 10 bikes a day. And you could do that every day, literally. There you go. Like, it's business is that simple. It's a lot of work. People don't want to do the work. It's uncomfortable. People don't want to, they want something that's going to be easy, that's going to work every time, right? Most of the business stuff that is successful, it fails 98% of the time, but the 2% is all you need. So
Of course. Yeah, that you just got to do that work and like repeat that same process over and over again. That works.
Yep.
And I just love that statement. And what about the field? Like you said, the software field, right? This actually, before that question, right? This is always the question I ask, like, how do you feel about like young guys right after high school? They're forced to either go to, like, they're influenced to go to college, or they should go to the military, or they should probably get a trade. What is your point of view on each one of them?
Yeah, well, on college is a waste. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time, because college used to serve a purpose when you didn't have YouTube and the internet, right? What is it that you need to go to college that you cannot learn on your own? Tell me what it is today. 50 years ago, sure. But today, is there something that there's some magic in college that they teach you something that you can't find the information somewhere else much, much cheaper, right? Sure, it's creating a schedule and a routine to give you discipline, but if you have self-discipline, you have no need for college, right? Create your own system and own schedule and routine. And getting a piece of paper, you could argue that, but at the same time, I think that, you know, giving up 4 or 5 years of your life to get a piece of paper, I think in that time, if you get 4 or 5 years of job experience, it's more valuable than a piece of paper, right? So I don't like college. I think that if you're going to become a lawyer or a doctor, sure. I mean, obviously, you have to, you know, go through the hurdles that are required to do that. But aside from that, why are you going to college? What are you trying to accomplish, you know, by doing that? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The second one, like, I think joining the military. I think joining the military is not it's not a horrible choice. It depends on why you're doing it, right? Because I think for a lot of people, it's going to create structure and discipline in their life that is necessary, especially if you came from a home that didn't have that. And so, you know, understanding chain of command is a big thing. You know, I think if you understand chain of command, you'll be a lot more successful in life. Like, there are certain people that are in charge of you, and you got to fucking do what they say. And sometimes you got to tell people what to do. And that's how it's not consensus. We don't vote on everything. Like, that's not how the world works. That's not how business works. That's not how, you know, things work. And so I think there's a valuable skill set to be gained there. And there's some financial benefits and things that, you know, especially if you're kind of stuck in a bad place, like joining the military can give you, you know, a VA loan, which is extremely valuable for investing in real estate. You know, the VA benefits for education, which again, you don't have to just use them on college. You can use them on specific courses and information that you want to gain knowledge in, you know, that kind of thing. So again, if I had the choice, like, I would say that it would be better to, you know, to start a business. But then the trade school thing, you know, I don't know. I mean, joining a trade, again, you have to really think about, like, where does this go, right? Where does it scale up? You don't want to trade dollars for your hours for dollars, right? Because being skilled in a trade, it doesn't give you any. The only way to become wealthy is leverage. So you have to leverage money, and you have to leverage time in other people, right? Those are the things you have to leverage. And so the problem with the trade is that you don't have any leverage. Right? You can't, your skill set determines how much money you make. That's it. Right. So, you know, if you own an auto shop, if you own, you know, something like that, where you are leveraging other people's time, sure, that's fine. But it'd be better to invest in the skill set of entrepreneurship and business and investing, because that allows you to have leverage. So.
Yeah. I'm right on you with that, John. And you said, like, for guys that want to make a lot of money, go to the software production, right?
Yeah.
They would say, okay, if I were to go through that path, what would I need? Do I need some certification, some college degree? Like, how do I get to that road and get those type of jobs, like Apple or Tesla or something like that?
The simplest thing to do is to go find, like, a coding boot camp, right? Like, they usually have these 3-month coding boot camps. Price is going to be around $10,000 to $20,000. It's fairly expensive, but in the long run, it's not, if you're going to get a 6-figure job. Okay. And then what you do is you find a good one. All right. And then you get their curriculum from them, or what they're going to teach you. Okay. In the 3-month program. And before you even enroll in it, you spend 3 months teaching yourself the curriculum. After you've taught yourself the curriculum for 3 months and really worked your ass off on that, then you enroll in the boot camp. Now what's going to happen? You're going to come in, you're going to know more than most people. I mean, there's going to be some genius kid that, you know, that whatever, but you're going to be the top 10% of the class, right? Any kind of coding bootcamp that's going to be successful financially is going to have at least their top 10% of their students graduate with jobs, right? So that's going to pretty much guarantee you a job. You're going to work your ass off when you're in the boot camp, of course, and you're going to help other students. You're going to become kind of the teacher's pet and help the teacher and stay longer and do all that stuff just to make sure. But then you're going to have a great outcome, because you're going to learn from teaching yourself and then going to the boot camp. In 6 months of intensive software development work, you're going to become good, right? In that short period of time, you can, and you'll be able to get a job. And then if you want to, you might not get a 6-figure job right out of the boot camp, but you'll probably at least be making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. In 6 months, you start applying for another job. Now you have something on your resume. Now you'll definitely get a 6-figure job.
Gotcha. And you said that you said you have a boot camp yourself, John, that these guys can go up to and whatever.
I don't have a boot camp for software development.
Okay, but you do have a book though that publishes that you published about software development though, right?
Right. Yeah. There's a complete software developer's career guide, and that's more about, like, it talks about a lot of what I said, like the options that you have. And then there's soft skills, and that is more geared toward, it's more of like a personal development book for software developers. So.
Gotcha. And Uh, what would you say your schedule? Hold on, Sami here has a question. Go ahead, Sami.
Could I ask what this book's called for reference?
Oh, my books?
Oh yeah, this book for the software development. What would you call it?
Yeah, it's called The Complete Software Developer's Career Guide.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
I have it right here somewhere. But what would you say your schedule looks like, John? When okay, let's go with two ways. What did your schedule look like when you before you started, when you started, and after, like now?
What do you mean, like?
Like a lot of the guys here that they're trying to see the grind, like how what kind of time do you do?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. So yeah, my schedule right now is a little bit weird. Like I'm rebuilding a new routine because I've been traveling a lot and like, moved and stuff like that. So it's not as strict as it used to be. But when I was building things up, when I was really like getting to the point of financial freedom, my schedule looked like waking up every morning at like 5:45, every morning, either going for a run at 6 a.m. or hitting the gym. And then when I got back, then I would work for an hour on my business stuff. And then I'd have my regular 9 to 5 job. I did this remote job as a software developer. And then after that, I would do just spend some time eating dinner, family time. And then pretty much from like 7 o'clock till 11 or 12 o'clock every night, I would work. And then on weekends, I would work. I didn't really have a social life. I didn't really and I did this for like 2.5 years to become financially free. That's what my grind was, right? And once I became, was working on my own and stuff, then I had a little bit of a change where I came up with a system where I planned out my week using like Pomodoro technique and a Kanban board. I've got some videos on that, but my routine was basically to just wake up, do the stuff I need to do. I didn't really have a big morning routine, and then just work through those, doing like around 12 to 14 Pomodoro per day. And then I had, within that, I have my workout, doing my running. I was running like 40 miles a week, and then hitting the gym 3 times a week. So that was kind of what it looked like, the basic overview. So.
All right, John, we got some last few questions here before we end the podcast. So what would you tell yourself? I call it like the final 5 here. So what would you tell yourself, your younger self, if you can go back in time?
I would say, like when you do something, do it all the way. Like, because the biggest waste of time is half completed or 98% completed bridges. Like, finish it, like do it all the way. Like if you're gonna go on a diet, fucking do it all the way. If you're gonna do whatever it is, gonna build a business, do it all the way. You're gonna write a book, do it all the way. Do it all the way, be a finisher.
Gotcha. And what would you be, does that also go with the next question? Like, what would you say the secret sauce to being successful is?
I would say that the biggest thing, secret sauce, is mean time between failures, right? So what I mean by that is, like, you heard, fall down 6 times, get up 7. It's how fast you get up. Getting up quickly is the key, because when you're falling down, you're destroying what you've built, right? So this applies in so many different ways. Like if you mess up on your diet, great, that's fine, but immediately get back on track. Like don't wait a day, don't wait the weekend, don't say I'm going to start again on Monday. That's where you make the backwards progress and screw up, right? As soon as you screw up, I was at McDonald's one time. I was breaking my dad. I bought a Big Mac meal, and I was taking a bite of the Big Mac, and I literally spit it out of my mouth because because I was like, all right, this is the quickest thought. Like I fucked up, but I don't have to keep on chewing this.
Yeah.
And then I dumped in the trash can, right? Like that's the thing, is like get up quickly, because so much can happen. You can destroy. It's not about like, it takes a long time to build. It takes a second to destroy. You could build a skyscraper. It takes years to do that. So many teams of people and engineers and all this stuff, but it could be destroyed in literally 2 minutes with a wrecking ball or explosives, right? So that's how everything is in life. So get up quickly.
Gotcha. And what quote do you live by each day? Like if you could represent yourself.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I would say one of them is, I don't want anything I haven't earned. I think that's key.
That's a good one. And what would you recommend for reading wise? You cannot name the ones that you named today. What reading books would you recommend for the guys, whether it's to self-improvement, financial? What would you recommend?
Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
That's a good one.
Let me see what else. But As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And let's see what else is on there. How to Be Free, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World by Harry Brown. That's a really good one too. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. And finally, well, how can the audience reach out to you, and what ways can they basically get involved with you?
Yeah, just go to bulldogmindset.com. There's a quiz that you guys have taken, the Bulldog quiz, see what your Bulldog score is. 10-question quiz. Just go there. There'll be a little pop-up that shows up when you go to bulldogmindset.com. And then I'll send you some emails about your score and how to improve it. And then you'll be on my list for videos that come out and all the content that I'm producing. So bulldogmindset.com.
All right. Thank you, John. We love having you here, and we appreciate it. Again, thank you for coming here, though.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Right, take care, guys.
You have a good one, John.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.